Hey, it's Dr. John Terry, the Black Belt Leader. Welcome to the Black Belt Leadership Podcast, where each week I'm giving you tips, tools, insights, and resources to help you become a better version of who you are and what you do as you discover, develop, and deploy your own Black Belt leader within. Hey, this week I want to talk about nurturing the seeds of success as we delve into the concept of human potential. Now, the parable of the mustard seed, story from the Bible, highlights the importance of small beginnings. Now, in the scripture, it refers to the mustard seed as the smallest of seeds. And once that seed had matured, according to the story, it grows into a large shrub that can provide shelter for the birds. Now, even though the seed is tiny, within the seed is immense, invisible potential. Now, if we go and look at science, science tells us that a seed is a tiny dormant embryo. And inside that embryo is the blueprint for a full-grown plant. So within the DNA of a seed is a hidden forest of abundance, of growth, and purpose. It only needs the right conditions, moisture, warmth, and soil to break out of dormancy and go through a process known as germination. Now, the seed doesn't look like much. It's a small kernel in size, but it stores life, nutrients, and genetic blueprint to become a flower, a shrub, a bush, or a tree. Now, one of the things I learned from my dad, who got into gardening in his 50s, is among the fastest growing seeds are radishes. Some varieties of radish can germinate in as soon as 48 hours after being planted, and those radishes are ready for harvest in 21 to 30 days. Lettuce and spinach only take 7 to 10 days to sprout. Now, my wife, who has a flower garden in our front yard, she loves to plant heat-loving flowers like marigolds and zinnias because they too sprout quickly and they can withstand the southern heat. Now, compare that to onions, which, according to my dad, required several months of indoor growth to reach the proper size before you could transplant them and actually put them in the ground. Peppers and eggplants, I didn't know till recently, require 7 weeks of warm soil to germinate and establish roots. Now, one of the slowest growing is the flower lysanthes. Now, the lysanthes flower must be planted 10 to 12 weeks before the last frost, and it can actually take up to 5 months for that seed to actually germinate and begin to bloom. That's hard to believe. Now, among the smallest of the flowering seeds today, we know is not just the mustard seed, but the orchid, the poppy, the pansy, and the foxglove. Now, among the smallest of the vegetable variety would be carrots, onions, and lettuce. Now, many of these seeds are so tiny, they're so lightweight, they look like and they feel like dust. Now, compare that to the coco de mer, whose seed, which is often called a double coconut, that seed can measure up to half a meter in length, 18 to 20 inches, and can weigh upwards of 40 to 55 pounds. But regardless of the seed, they all have one thing in common. All seeds possess potential, but that potential is hidden within the seed. The other important thing we need to remember about seeds is seeds only produce after their own kind. Now, for a seed to sprout, it's got to be buried in the ground. The potential inside the seed isn't enough. It's not just going to sprout and grow a tree on its own. Until that seed is planted and nurtured, it can't grow. And it's in the darkness of the cold, damp ground that the process of germination begins. And this is where the seed begins to develop a root system that will nourish and ultimately support the plant once it breaks through the surface of the soil. Now, by the same token, you can't plant apple seeds and expect to harvest oranges or grapes. It doesn't work that way. A poppy seed can't produce roses, and a watermelon seed can't produce pumpkins. It's not the way it works. The DNA, what's inside the seed, is going to determine what is ultimately revealed to the world once that seed has an opportunity to germinate, establish its root system, grow to maturity, and start to produce fruit. So the seed, as we think of the seed, it represents the process of growth. It represents the release of hidden potential within. Now, the early progress of the seed is hidden beneath the surface. We don't see what's happening with the seed as it begins to break out of its dormant state and it begins to extend its roots into the ground, because it's the expansion of that root system that supports the plants so they can be firmly established, anchored to the soil, and have an opportunity to form a network through which nutrients can continue to feed and sustain growth of that plant as it grows and reaches maturity. Now, only after the root system is fully established can we see the stalk of the plant rise above the surface of the ground and that plant begin to grow, mature, and ultimately produce flowers or fruit. So the potential of what could be remains within the seed. And that potential can only be revealed when the conditions are right for that seed to awaken from its dormant state. But once that seed has been awakened and established its roots and grows to maturity and starts producing fruit, remember, it's only going to produce the fruit that aligns with what's on the inside, with what is written in the DNA blueprint of the seed. So if success starts as a seed, my question to you this morning would be this: what are you growing and where are you growing? Now, in a 2023 TED Talk, philosopher Agnes Callard commented on the difference between ambition and aspiration. In this TED Talk, she said that ambition is the outcome you want to attain, but aspiration is the person you hope to become. Did you get that? Ambition, the outcome you want to attain. Aspiration, the person you hope to become. Now, both ambition and aspiration can fuel your life, but they're going to fuel it in different ways. Ambition doesn't require that you appreciate the outcome. As long as you attain it, that's good enough. But aspiration, on the other hand, is where you learn to appreciate the journey, the lessons you learn along the way, and the value of how this journey and what you've learned and how it's developed you and shaped you into a new and better person of yourself. That's the aspirational goal of aspiration. So if you think about it, ambition leads to more achievement, but aspiration leads to more transformation. Ambition's going to let you accomplish more, but aspiration is going to let you become more. So when it comes to success, are you more ambitious or are you more aspirational? Well, here's what I'm here to tell you. When you focus on aspiration and become a better version of who you are, you're also going to become better at what you do. And aspiration can not only feed your aspirational goals, it can feed your ambition at the same time. Now, the question is going to be this: when it comes to aspiration or ambition, which of these is being programmed into your DNA that's going to ultimately manifest how success shows up in your life? You know, I've heard my friend and mentor, Dr. John Maxwell, say often, we teach what we know, but we reproduce who we are. I want you to think about that statement. We teach what we know, but we reproduce who we are. It's the DNA of what's on the inside of you that ultimately takes root, that grows, that develops, and brings forth the fruit of your life for the world to see. So the question you've got to answer is this: what are you putting inside of you? Now, knowing that a seed only produces after its kind, what are you planting and nurturing in your life? Remember, you teach what you know, but you reproduce who you are, and you can only reproduce what's on the inside of you. So the seeds you're growing right now in your life are your hidden potential. And once that potential that's been sown into your life has germinated and taken root, it's going to bring forth a harvest. So again, the question is this: what's the hidden potential that's germinating within your life? Now, you got to remember, a seed doesn't look like much. It's small, it's ordinary, it's very easy to overlook. But inside that seed is everything. It is the blueprint. It is the DNA for what's ultimately going to be developed and deployed and revealed to the world. You know, if you think about it, the towering oak tree is encapsulated in a little small acorn. By the same token, there is encapsulated power and potential lurking inside of you. And once that power and potential, that seed takes root and grows, it's going to manifest as ideas, as gifts, as leadership ability, as discipline, influence, and potential. But remember, potential means nothing until it's planted. So again, I pose the question, what are you planting inside of you? Now, when you go back to horticulture and you think about planting, you don't plant a seed in the spotlight. You bury a seed in the ground. That seed goes into the darkness of the dirt where it's going to sit there alone, isolated, and waiting at some point to be awakened from its dormant state so it begin the process of germination where now it can expand and it can grow. Now, this is the part of growth that most people want to avoid. Because if you think about it, most people want growth without the struggle. They want elevation without the progress, or they want visibility without the preparation that's required so that when you show up successfully. Well, I'm here to tell you that's not how nature works. Before the seed ever breaks through the surface of the soil, it's got to first develop its roots in the dark. So it's that daily preparation of personal growth that we talk about often here on the podcast that establishes your beliefs, your behaviors, and the resilience in your life that's ultimately going to set you up for a harvest of success once you've firmly established that root system in your life. So the necessity of darkness is the proving ground to see if you've got what it takes to establish a strong root system that's going to equip and empower you to succeed in the future. Because if you think about it, in reality, you're already succeeding even as you're establishing the root system. Because that root system, once it's successfully formed, is going to feed ongoing success at an ever higher level in your life for many, many years to come. But remember, an apple tree doesn't produce a single apple. The apple trees that are in my backyard produce multiple apples year after year. And each and every one of those apples, the fruit of that tree, contains the DNA of success in not one seed, but many seeds inside each apple, so that that process of replicating apples can continue at an ever higher level. And this is how one apple tree can turn into an orchard. So I want you to think about that for a minute. If one apple can produce the seeds that turn one tree into an orchard over time, the same is true for success in your life. So success not only produces the fruit of accomplishment, but in that fruit of accomplishment are the seeds for even a greater harvest of success in the future. But it's in the necessity of darkness where preparation is an absolute. It's there you've got to nurture the seed and give that seed what it needs to expand, to grow, and to prepare so it can ultimately bring forth a harvest in your life. And that means there's also a need for nurturing because a seed left unattended doesn't thrive, it dies. You can put grass seed on the ground, but if you don't water it and you don't provide it what it needs, that seed is never going to take root and grow. Ask me, I know. Now, the seed in any situation needs the right environment, it needs constant care, and it needs protections from anything and everything that might choke that seed out or in some way deprive it of the nutrients it needs to establish a root system so it can grow to its full potential. Did you get that? Success works the same way. Success in your life needs the right environment, constant care, and protection from the things that might choke it out or deprive it of what it needs so success can rise to its full potential in your life. You know, you've heard me say it in many different ways, but I want to say it this way today. What you constantly expose yourself to, you become. Jen Rohn famously said, we become the sum total of the people that we hang around. And that we know is true. Now, whatever you're feeding your mind ultimately transforms your thinking. The voices that you allow into your head and into your environment will ultimately become the influences that guide your growth or the lack thereof. The habits that you practice daily are going to become the limiters or the lifters of your potential. What you constantly expose yourself to, that is who you're going to become. And by the same token, you can't plant seeds of doubt and expect confidence to grow in your life. You can't water seeds of negativity and expect a harvest of success to suddenly show up in your life one day. Remember, you teach what you know, but you reproduce who you are. So again, my question is, who are you becoming? Now, there's another parable in Scripture referred to as the parable of the sower. And in that story, a gardener scatters seeds. And that seed lands on four types of soil. Some seed fell on the pathway and the birds quickly ate it. Other seed fell on what is referred to as rocky ground, where the seeds sprout quickly, but they wither in the sun because the ground is so firm and there's an inability for the roots to begin to fully develop. Now, other seed fell among what is referred to as thorny ground, and the thorns that were there literally choked the life out of the young plants, impeding their growth. But some of the seed fell on fertile soil where it could germinate, establish roots, and bring forth a substantial harvest. Now, you may be saying, John, why are you sharing these parables today? Because these parables have real life application in your life today. Let me explain. In this parable, you are the sower. You are carrying the seeds right now that are ultimately going to dictate the harvest that you experience in your life. Now, maybe you're carrying seeds of leadership or purpose or influence or impact, and that's what you're sowing into the ground. Remember, you reap what you sow. Or maybe you're carrying seeds of fear or doubt or a lack of confidence or limiting beliefs. And again, what you reap is what you sow. Don't forget, a seed only reproduces after its kind. So that begs the question, what kind of seed are you sowing in your life? Now, not only are you the sower, you're also the soil. So depending on the choices you've made and the circumstances of life that you are experiencing right now, you're going to find your life in one of four conditions. And that first condition, you're living in the pathway. Your life has been so hardened by past experience, past failures, past disappointments, or pride and ego in your life that nothing new can penetrate this hardness of your life. Now, maybe instead you are what is referred to as living life on rocky ground. In that situation, you're the individual that's quick to get excited. You can't wait to get going and you're really excited to commit. But once the pressure comes and adversity hits, guess what happens? You wither and you fade. Why? Because there was never any depth to your life. There's no discipline and there's no foundation upon which success can germinate and grow. You actually fail to create an environment where you could develop a root system that was strong enough to sustain ongoing growth in your life. Or maybe you're living among the thorns of life. The seed takes root, it germinates and it starts to grow. The intention is good, but all of a sudden that good intention gets choked out by all the competing priorities in your life. Things like worry, busyness, focus on comfort over growth, or maybe it's overcommitting. Whatever it may be, the seed of potential gets strangled before it ever has a chance to mature. Because you find yourself pursuing anything and everything, but never taking the time to develop the maturity so that you can master one thing in the process. So here you are chasing anything and everything, but mastering nothing as you go through life. Or maybe, just maybe, your life is in a position that you're ready to receive the seed. You're ready to be patient enough to endure the process, and you're disciplined enough at this point in your life to allow that seed to develop a strong root system. You're going to be focused enough on eliminating the weeds of distraction, allowing the hidden potential of success in the seed an opportunity to find a fertile place in your life where that seed can be nurtured, protected, and it has an opportunity to grow. Now, you got to remember that growth is intentional. You've got to know the seed that you want to sow in your life so that you are ready to receive the harvest that that seed is going to reproduce. So if you're at this point in your life that you are fertile ground, as the sower sowing good seed, you know exactly what seed you want to sow into your life. Whether it's leadership, it's communication, it's personal growth, it's impact, it's influence, whatever it is, and you prepared yourself, the soil of your life, to receive it. And not only that, you're taking the steps necessary to protect what you planted, to nurture what matters. And along the way, you're going to continually be removing the weeds that can impede that seed from growing to its full potential. So again, my question is this: what kind of harvest are you planning for? Remember, seeds don't negotiate. Seeds only reproduce their DNA, their blueprint. They only reproduce what's on the inside. So if you plant discipline, you're going to reap mastery. If you plant consistency, you're going to reap results. If you plant vision, you're going to reap a legacy that will live for generations after you're gone. But if you plant excuses, distraction, fear, or doubt into your life, don't be surprised when that harvest shows up, because seeds reproduce after their kind, and so do you. So again, it begs the question, what are you planting inside of you? What is the harvest that you're preparing for? Remember, whatever you're sowing, that you're going to reap. Whatever you're planting in the ground, that's the harvest you're going to experience. Don't forget, you teach what you know, but you reproduce who you are. Now, you can have the best intentions, you can say the right words, and you can even set the right goals. But these things aren't seeds. What you're planting, what you're nurturing, and what you're growing is ultimately going to show up in your identity, in your habits, in your character, and in your values. This is the harvest that other people are going to see, and they're going to experience even as you experience it in your own life. Because what you sow into your life, the seeds you're planting today, are going to eventually bear fruit. Those seeds, once they mature, are going to be revealed to the world for what's planted on the inside of you. So remember, you not only get to choose the seed, but you get to choose to create the conditions of the soil of your life to receive it. Now, that's important because even the best seed can't overcome poor soil, rocky soil, thorny soil, or a pathway. The best seed in the world can't thrive when there's a lack of nurturing. You got to break up the hardness, you got to remove the rocks, and you got to pull out the weeds that are in your life. So here's my challenge to you today. First, audit the seeds you're planting. Don't plant what you don't want to harvest. Here's the good news. At the end of each planting season, my dad would go out with his tiller and he would turn the garden over. Any seeds that had been there, any roots that were there would be pulled up so he can start again. If you're planting the wrong seeds, stop planting, because what you plant, you get more of. You want to plant seeds of aspiration that, when they're nurtured, are going to transform you, and they're going to inspire those around you to do the exact same thing. One of my friends, Ray Popham, says, be good at what you do, but be great at who you are. The only way you can do that is to plant seeds of aspiration and nurture those seeds until you transform into a better version of who you are and what you do. Now, the second thing I want to challenge you to do is to embrace the dark season of growth. As I share in my book, Black Belt Secrets of Success, successful people do daily what unsuccessful people do sometimes or not at all. This is why personal growth in your life is a must. You've got to make sure that what you are building are success practices that ultimately become the success habits that govern your life. So this nurturing process is done through daily personal growth. And that means you've got to be patient in the process. You've got to allow time for these practices and these principles to become so deeply rooted inside yourself. They become a part of who you are, and they ultimately allow those seeds of success to rise to their full potential. Now, the third thing I want to challenge you to do is to commit to nurturing what matters most in your life. A seed not only needs good soil, but it needs moisture, warmth, and nutrients in order to maximize the growth of that seed. So it's in this third process where you're going to water and fertilize your thinking. Because as you think, you say, you do, and you become. And it's in this third season that you're also weeding and pruning parts of your life so that you are removing and replacing the beliefs that aren't serving you well with beliefs that do. Now, you got to remember, you're preparing the soil of your life so the seeds of success that you're planting don't just survive, but they thrive. And when those seeds bring forth a harvest, you become a better version of who you are and what you do, and you and the world around you can see you. Now, don't forget, you play 3 roles in the process of revealing hidden potential. 2 of them you know, and the third I want to reveal to you now as I close out this lesson. First, you are the sower. Choose your seeds well and choose where you're going to sow that seed. Secondly, you are also the soil. You want to make sure you're daily preparing your life so that that seed can be received in fertile soil, and then you have the opportunity to nurture that seed so it can grow to its maximum potential and you can experience more success in your life every day. And the third and the most important, not only are you the sower, not only are you the soil, you are ultimately the harvest. Because one day the world is going to sit under the shade of what you planted. So here's my question. Will it be a tree of strength or will it be a field of regret? I want to challenge you. Plant wisely, grow intentionally, because this is what black belt leaders do. Hey, I'm Dr. John Terry, the Black Belt Leader. Thanks for joining me and have a great day.